Unfortunately, we have to talk about this because the news just broke, and no Alabama fan saw it coming. How could this happen to our defense of all units? I have to admit, Alabama fans, I still can't believe it's true myself. And what I'm about to tell you is going to leave you speechless because there's one player in this story who is already being compared to one of the most dominant defensive weapons the SEC has seen in recent years. But before I reveal who that player is and what's behind those comparisons, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and leave a like so you never miss anything happening inside Alabama Crimson Tide football. Let me put into perspective just how serious the situation looked before this dramatic turnaround. 6 defensive starters left after the Rose Bowl. 6. And these weren't just backup players. They were the backbone of Kane Wommack's defensive system. Critics were already celebrating, claiming Alabama's defense would take a major step backward and that 2026 would be a rebuilding season rather than a championship run. Rival fan bases were laughing, saying Alabama had lost the defensive identity that had defined the program for decades. But no one expected what came next. Here's the statistic that's setting the internet on fire right now. Nearly 47% of Alabama's defensive snaps from last season walked out the door with those departing players. Nearly half of the starting defense was gone. But before you panic, there's a huge twist to this story. While other SEC programs waited for the next recruiting class to develop, Alabama attacked the transfer portal with an aggressiveness that very few programs in the country were willing to match. Here's why that 47% matters even more than it seems at first glance. It's not just about the number of players who left. It's about the amount of experience that disappeared overnight. But Kane Wommack refused to stand by and watch disaster unfold. He brought in 17 new defensive players during a single transfer portal cycle, and 5 of them are already on track to become starters or major rotational contributors before preseason camp has even begun. 5 players ready to take on immediate responsibility. That's essentially half of the rebuilding process completed before the season even kicks off. And this is where the player drawing comparisons to some of the SEC's greatest defensive stars enters the picture. Devin Tompkins, a defensive lineman transferring from Southern California, arrives with 4.5 career sacks in 27 games, bringing proven production rather than simply potential. Alongside him is Desmond Umeozulu, the edge rusher who became one of the biggest stars of spring practice thanks to explosive plays that immediately caught the attention of analysts from the very first padded practice. There's also Carmelo O'Neal, who transferred from Mercer and has already been working with the first-team secondary, adding a level of size and physicality Alabama's defensive backfield simply didn't have before. To be honest, the national perception of Alabama's transfer portal class wasn't particularly impressive at first. Analysts ranked the group outside the nation's elite, calling it an average portal class that lacked the star power needed to generate excitement. But spring practice told an entirely different story from what the recruiting rankings predicted. And that's exactly why Alabama fans are both thrilled and cautiously optimistic. But the story doesn't end there, because this is where the anxiety of Crimson Tide Nation truly begins. Programs like Georgia, Texas, and LSU also significantly upgraded their defenses through the transfer portal. And the 2026 SEC season is shaping up to feature the fiercest defensive competition the conference has seen in years. Alabama's challenge isn't simply rebuilding its defense. It's rebuilding faster than its rivals, who are doing the exact same thing. There's another detail that hasn't received nearly enough attention. Among Alabama's offensive transfers, wide receiver Noah Rogers, who was expected to be an immediate starter, suffered a serious injury during A-Day and is expected to miss a significant portion of the season. That means the pressure on Alabama's defense to carry the team through the early part of the schedule becomes even greater. The stage is now set for a remarkable redemption story. On paper, this is an underrated group that was overlooked by national rankings, but now has an opportunity to prove that overall talent and depth matter more than recruiting stars beside a player's name. If these 5 transfer additions perform the way they've looked during spring practice, Alabama could realistically enter the 2026 season with the most underrated, and perhaps the most dangerous defense in the country. However, if their collective inexperience becomes exposed against elite opponents early in the schedule, the same critics who questioned this rebuilding effort from the beginning will quickly say, "We told you so." That's exactly where Alabama fans find themselves today, hopeful because of the raw talent that has arrived, yet anxious about the enormous void that still has to be filled. And that's exactly why I want to hear your opinion in the comments right now. Is rebuilding nearly half of your starting defense through the transfer portal year after year a smart, modern roster-building strategy? Or is it taking away the soul and identity of what it has always meant to wear the Alabama jersey? Leave your thoughts in the comments, Roll Tide Nation, because this debate is guaranteed to spark strong opinions on both sides. And if this video has you feeling as nervous as I am, be sure to hit the like button, turn on notifications, and tell me this. Which of these new additions do you think will surprise everyone during the 2026 season? Roll Tide!